Yo guys, what is up? It's your boy JamesTheAce. Welcome back to another video. Today, I am finally going to be making a video on the state of PvP. Now, usually what I do with these kinds of topics in general, right? Because usually I don't make videos on this topic. But what I have been doing is posting a twit longer on Twitter. And people have been like, well, instead of posting twit longers, why don't you just make a video, right? Because that would be much more beneficial to your channel. And to the viewers that aren't following you on Twitter. And fair enough, right? So today I'm doing a video on that, talking about the state of PvP now. Basically in this video, I'm going to be talking about what is going on with the culture and the meta of Max, Exalted, Legendary, and 50. Talking about their problems, kind of what needs to be done to them if the devs ever take initiative to actually make these leagues better. And kind of what the player feedback is, or at least a general consensus of it, right? Before we actually get into the topic of the culture and kind of the meta and what's right or wrong with the current state of PvP with the Exalted, Premier, Legendary, and Master Leagues, we need absolutely to talk about the big four things that are just absolutely wrong with the game right now. And I think it's almost been a month, or it's about to be more than a month. I think we're coming up on a month where these changes have just been like in the game, and I think all four of these or I'll just dub it the big four. I'm pretty sure the devs know about the big four, but without further ado, starting off, right, the first of the big four, it has to be this new rounding error that is plaguing every single league in the game. And it's like fundamentally broken with PvP specifically. This isn't, just the 50 league, just the 60 league, just 100. It is literally like every league of PvP. Before, the rounding error only used to occur when you aurid. And I think it sometimes occurred when you crit. But this is, I guess it has something to do with the code surrounding the resist limit and intersection. But literally, someone pointed out, actually, in my comments section, I'll just throw that up real quick. Every time I would get hit in PvP, in one of my last videos, my health kept auto-correcting, right? Because every single time I got hit, the game would rounding error and then correct itself. And actually, I experienced this like full force in one of my last fire PvP videos where I did an overtime detonate strat, and I guess the game told me, right, that I killed the opponent, but I actually did not. Like, in reality, in the game's code, I guess I did not do enough damage to actually kill them, but the game told me I did. So their head was spinning, and the game told me, okay, you won, like, they're dead, but they were still able to pick cards. And I didn't really think too much of it, because I'm like, okay, I can still close out the game, I have enough pips, whatever, right? I'm not going to lose here. But I'm telling you right now, man, if that would have costed me the game, that would have pretty much killed my entire vibe. Like, I have very little patience, which is why I haven't been putting out videos on PvP recently, like, for this game. Like, if something is fundamentally broken like that, and it's been in the game for, like, almost a month, or maybe going on a little bit more than a month, then I just get turned off from this game. Like, I have very little patience for things that are fundamentally wrong with this game, and are just going, like, unfixed, unpatched. I just have zero patience for it. I've been playing this game for way too long, right? And if I'm putting my money into this game, like, it needs to be playable. Because right now, like, this is completely unacceptable. Again, all four of these things that I'm going to mention are known by the devs, right? So anyways, moving on, the other three are actually going to be literal spellmetas. So the three spellmetas I'm talking about are going to be Colossus, and I would hope that I do not have to sit here and tell you why this is unbalanced or not working as intended. And really quick, if you don't know what Colossus actually does, it basically converts shields into 65% ice feints. And currently, the way that this broken card works is that one of these shields that you convert, if you were to triple shield for 0 pips, gets used by the Colossus, right, before the hit. So you convert the shields into traps and then hit. Whereas Minotaur, on the other hand, will hit and then convert shields on the opponent into traps. So it's like a hit and betrayal. But yeah, 65% ice traps. I would love to have a PvP roundtable specifically with the person that decided 65% would be the balanced percent for a 6-pip ice spell, right? Absolutely ridiculous. The other 2 cards are definitely going to have to be Troll, which just does not work as intended. Currently, the card says that it's supposed to break up to 2 shields. The first shield being 25% added on from your maximum overtime detonate. And then the second shield is supposed to yield an extra 25 for a total of 50% of your overtime added on. So you would pierce 2 shields off of yourself for, I guess, like a mini gambit of an extra 50% of your overtime. And then it actually detonates the overtime. So it does not work as intended. It will only detonate up to 1 shield, regardless of the card saying it would detonate 2. And then the third card in question is going to be Vampire. Primarily, this is mostly abused in the Master and Legendary Leagues, because that is where you're getting the most bang for your buck from a, low rank drain. But this card kind of just does everything. And to the devs' defense, right? This wasn't being used, so it wasn't really as big of a problem because people were spamming Wraith, and that card was just absolutely broken. I think if you had a Blade, it would put 2 School 65 like pre-patch Ifrit weaknesses on the opponent, which is like, I don't know how that made it through the test realm. So the reason why Vampire is broken is because players are stacking up to like a full row of Trifold Fever, right? That like 2-pip triple 50% infection. And basically what they're doing is they're doing that, and then they're instantly going into a Vampire. Now, you might be saying, okay, well, I mean, James, you do know that, the new Delusion, the myth spell for 3 pips, everybody can myth pip, everybody can use it, it's chromatic, why not just do that and make the deaths eat their own strategy, right? Well, okay, I'm using 2 power pips, and given I am actually myth pipping over and over and over, and that I'm using a full deck, right? Which I would think most people are, but you never really know. To remove a 1-pip move, a 1 power pip move that they're doing, and if I don't instantly flip it with Delusion, then I am 100% getting vampired, and those infections are going to turn into school weaknesses, and they're like 65 school weaknesses, just like Wraith was. And this can be a problem when, Vampire is a 4-pip move and Trifold Fever is a, singular pip move, singular power pip move for 2 pips. And they can just repeatedly do this while also breaking any shields, taking off any debuffs that you place on them, and draining. So they're also healing off of this, right? It is a hit, a drain, remove shields, remove weaknesses, and, because they're flipping negative charms on you, you now have a single infection in case you wanted to heal for whatever reason, and now you have 2 65 weaknesses on you specific to your school. So if your wand is not your school, then you cannot take them off. You have to actually use on-school hits. So with the big 4 out of the way, I do want to give some kudos and actually commend the devs for doing a really good job on some of the recent balancing that they have been doing to the game. For instance, Headless Horseman, right? Sorry, Deathmains, but that going to 5 pips was probably one of the biggest changes that people have been asking for a long time. The fact that you actually came through and listened to feedback and made that card 5 pips, I have to give you claps for that. We've been asking for that for a long time, right? If there is method to the madness, it needs to happen everywhere. Everything needs to be held to that standard, right? And just like Headless Horseman, they also went ahead and audited the higher DPP spellment path of Splasquatch, to where when that starts to get really close to the DPP of, say, Headless Horseman, for instance, for 5 pips now, that also went to 5 pips. Instead of being a tier 5, borderline pay-to-win spell for 4 pips still, so that Myth would eventually become like the new Headless Horseman spammer. They actually covered their bases and made sure that, okay, if there's method to the madness for Headless Horseman, then Splasquatch needs to follow the same method to the madness. So this is a huge W, right? Things like this are a huge W. When Banshee was broken, they ended up fixing that. When Wraith was broken, excuse me, they fixed that. But when those things were getting spammed, right, for instance, nobody was worrying about Vampire because there were 2 other cards that were just blatantly better. But, you know, these things have been in the game for a long time, right? There's been multiple patch windows. Like, why are we still having these problems, right? And that's not even to mention, again, like the rounding error, which is a huge reason why players aren't playing, period. So there are good and bad things that have happened in the recent updates. I don't just want to cover the negatives, but huge kudos to the devs for actually balancing a lot of the recent cards. I know a lot of Storms were happy about the Rusalka buffs and Storm buffs and stuff like that. Fire and Myth are now viable, actually usable schools in the lower level leagues, because before they just weren't in the league at all. Like, you just never saw them because they were just garbage baby doodoo butter. Just because, you know, Death would just headless spam and Ice would just Colossus spam, which I guess they're still doing, etc, etc. But all right, so with that out of the way, quickly, I want to go ahead and brush over all 4 of the leagues and quickly talk about pretty much like the state of all of them, like what's going really good, what's going really bad, what the leagues need, starting with the Exalted League. Now, one of the really good things about the Exalted League in recent past is that all of these schools are now viable. I'm hearing really good things about Life, Fire specifically. Fire was non-existent at Exalted. I hear it's actually really gas right now. Schools like Storm are not super broken, so that's also a really big W for the league. However, the league still suffers from insane and imbalanced crit scaler. What I mean by that is certain schools have really high critical multipliers. Primarily the offensive schools are just people running like really high crit setups for whatever reason. Your multiplier can reach like 1.20 for certain people that are not running like meta block. So it can really be detrimental if you're either like critting all of your attacks and your opponent isn't. It can seem pretty unbalanced for them. Another big thing that is like hitting the Exalted League pretty hard is that most people, even like the diehard Exalteds, will confirm that like the majority of the players that are like quote unquote new are just the diehard Exalted players that have been playing, just making new characters. So most of the people that you're facing one day, you're going to face the next, probably just on a different character. It just kind of is what it is until the Exalted League or the devs, I guess, can find out a way to balance the league, if ever or at all. In the sense that, you know, it's just way too damage heavy, way too pierce heavy. Storm having 130 damage and 50 pierce is just definitely not okay for level 100. Moving on to the Premier League. Yeah. Anyways, the Legendary League. Okay, no, seriously. I don't do Premier PvP, which is why I don't really want to talk on it. But, like, from what I hear, it's pretty much like a to each their own sort of league, right? And what I mean by that is, a lot of people like to call this league, you know, like the most popular, so it doesn't really matter what people say about it, yada, 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 right? But if we're using even a fraction of our, you know, brain power, you can pretty much, like, know that Wizard101 is an MMORPG, right? And when players are playing an MMORPG, right, what is their main goal? It's to, you know, beat the game, get to the end of the game. And with a game like this, where you can create multiple characters, what is the average player going to do when the multitude of their characters reach max level in an MMORPG, or the majority of their characters reach max level? They're probably going to, at some point, try max level PvP, even if, you know, just one match per character or one match on a single character. And with how many players still play this game, right? 122 pages of 14 players each page, right? That is going to be a lot of people by default. So by no means is the Premier League or the max level league always going to be the most populated because it is balanced. Rather, the most populated by default just because Wiz is an MMORPG, or just rather a game, right? But it is kind of to each their own. A lot of negative feedback, a lot of positive feedback, a lot of meh feedback. But again, a lot of that is just because it is the most populated league by default. So not really much to say here. Although I do want to mention, it is pretty funny that some of the buff schools like Myth and Fire, I guess Fire specifically, apparently it's like dog water, like really, really bad at max. But in every other league, fire is now viable and or godlike, depending on who's playing it. And like before the, like the Elephant audit and stuff like that, like before the Brim buff, the Krampus buff and stuff like that, and the Burning Rampage and the Fire Cat audit, like fire was just doo-doo. It was just doo-doo. But now at max, it's even more doo-doo. But in every other league, it's like, holy crap, the school's really good. So I don't really know what's going on. Like the patch blessed every other league, except max. It just made schools worse, apparently. Like Liam is still saying that ice is hitting harder than storm. I can't verify that. I don't play max, but I mean, wild takes everywhere, right? Like people wouldn't be saying this stuff just for no reason. Anyways, we move the Legendary League. Now, right, completely unbiased opinion. Because I haven't even been doing new Legendary for that long, right? Like it just became like really great, really just recently. Unbiased opinion. I think that Legendary is in the contender or has the best chance at becoming like the most balanced, second most populated league in the game. I'm not sure in what position it is via population. I know that Grand or Master has more players. And I think that will kind of like increase in time because I do think eventually Arc 1 will become free, and that will be like a really big boost for Master or Grandmaster PvP. But just because of what Legendary PvP has to offer, I think that this league has the best chance at being like the best PvP experience in the entire game. But on top of the league being much more balanced now, thank you to Ratbeard, by the way. I have to give kudos where it's due, right? Thank you for buffing Myth and buffing Fire. However, the Legendary League suffers from two main things, and that is going to be the fact that the 60 League never received a gear audit. Our gear is still very much living in, 2013, 2014, when the 4 Dungeons update hit, which still does affect the league. A lot of crafted gear and a lot of Waterworks, House of Scales gear is either not meta, is way too meta, or is just broken. And if you're talking about like ice crafted gear, right, that like wards to schools like Fire and Storm way too hard. So eventually when the pin system does come, hopefully they also audit the 60 gear, and hopefully it's not as bad of an audit as like the 50 gear. Cause I mean, I look at some of that gear and some of that gear is like, so yeah, 60 does need an audit. And then the second biggest thing, which I think is even bigger than the gear audit, if you ask certain people, or if you ask myself, I think that this is probably the biggest thing that 60 suffers from, is the fact that jewels down here, like Pierce jewels, are completely pay to win. The Duelist Daredevil Ring and the Duelist Fatal Razor, which prior to the 5th Age PvP update used to be the go-to, like the definitive meta Athayman ring, have no stats. And because the jewels are pay to win, I can't remove these jewels, right? I would have to pay more money. Our drop rate for our jewels are just garbo, and that is a huge reason why people won't even give 60 the time of day or make like another character, even though they have free slots, to level up a 60. Like it just won't happen because people aren't willing to buy jewels when they can just do Exalted or do Premier and farm the Thieves Den. Right, and just put up with like the bad stuff that goes on in those leagues, like crit and heavy RNG. So I think that if like these things aren't super big changes, but like it would go such a long way, and I think that like it would nice Legendary so much. I think that Legendary would be like the definitive, like best least RNG league with like the most balanced gameplay, like objectively in the game. So that is saying a lot, and a lot of people agree. Even like some maxes are making legends and spending the money for the jewels, and they're like, holy crap, like I can't believe I've been playing Garbo Max when this exists, right? So like even Blake PvP has been down here grinding the legendary queue. He's on like second page, I think. Yeah, Blake, like number 28, because I think he stopped after like his 45th one match. But yeah, so that's Legendary League. And then the Master League, last but not least, Not really much to say other than, again, the audit really made this league much more balanced. A lot of feedback coming from this league basically is just that, Ice is broken with Colossus spam, Death, again, just like the Legendary League, even though I didn't mention it just now, Deaths are spamming Trifold into Vampire. It's really annoying. It's not really balanced. It doesn't promote, oh, I want to hop back into PvP kind of like vibes. It's just really not fun. So aside from Isis spamming the Broken Colossus and aside from Death spamming the broken unbalanced Vampire, a lot of the schools are balanced. So I'm very happy to kind of like report that, I guess. But one thing I would probably like say that the Master League needs is a teleporter inside of the Master Dungeon. Primarily like in the beginning, at least to get to the top of the elevator portion of the dungeon. If that could happen for the Master League, it would, especially like with the first arc most likely becoming free in the near future, that would really nice this league, because that dungeon is so long, and it definitely discourages people wanting to farm for their level 50 PvP gear if they're not willing to open their wallets. And then of course, I would assume that the Master League also suffers from the jewel drop rate problem. They're just there aren't enough people that want to play this league. Even if our first arc becomes free, that are willing to open up their wallets. So that would definitely increase the amount of players that play the Master League as well, if the jewel drop rate became buffed in a near update. But that is the rundown of the state of PvP. Please let me know if you guys have any additional comments, your experiences, what you guys are hearing about Legendary, Premier, Exalted, and Master respectively. Feedback is welcome. Please, I would love to hear your input or your comments, concerns about the state of PvP in the comment section below. Please discuss your opinions, and as always, I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.